Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Untied Reviews. This being a show where it's about TV shows that are dramas. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Family Law Season 2, Episode 3. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So first and foremost, kind of the main overarching element is this episode. I don't remember if it's like an actual divorce settlement type of situation, but it's basically like the division of Efren and Sabine, they're basically deciding how like things kind of get divided up, and he's getting most of the stuff in the situation, but obviously with everything that Abby's going through right now, especially with her therapy session playing out the way it did at the beginning of the episode, she came in with some spice where it's like, yo, everything's kind of getting put on her. Like, why is she kind of getting screwed out of a lot of stuff? And she didn't really read up on things before she jumped into the case. She probably took some cliff notes and stuff. But then it turns out, yes, Sabine's apparently a part of a cult, and that's where a lot of these underlying issues come from. But obviously you have Abby trying to take Sabine's side more so than anything, being like, right, he's probably exaggerating, trying to put you down and saying oh, you only deserve this much, but it's like, no, she deserves a lot more. We need to kind of renegotiate this whole situation. In fact, it was going to be more, not even amicable, but it's like Sabine had already signed off on this deal, but because of Abby, she decided, no, I'm actually going to restructure this deal. So her and, well, they also got Cecil looking into it, but Abby goes on the ground level of investigating this kind of health and fitness type of thing she's a part of, known as Lyft. It's right, we got to prove whether or not this is a cult or not, but it's kind of almost right, you exercise. It's kind of almost, it's almost like this feel good thing of just kind of getting healthy and stronger and kind of basically believing in yourself. And obviously Abby kind of has to go through the whole thing until she meets the leader, Nate. I thought I didn't expect him to be the leader when Abby met him. I thought, especially at a time where things are with her and Frank, I think someone kind of saying something so encouraging to her, because I think that's the beautiful juxtaposition, especially because with everything she's going through with Frank, and then here's someone who's hey, you can get over that wall. I know you can. I believe in you. Whereas Frank, all he did in that first session with that doctor was basically crap on Abby, because they were having this loving moment of just oh yeah, this is how we met, haha, it was sweet. And then the therapist kind of threw a wrench in all that fun by being yeah, so when did your drinking start? And he immediately kind of threw her under the bus. It's oh yeah, we went to see my mom and you were just kind of this and that. He was so quick to throw her under the bus, and then being oh, the therapist, she's so intuitive. He didn't recognize what he was doing, which is super effed up. It's why are we here in the first place? It is about your affair. And it's less about my drinking. Yes, that's an issue. That's something I'm dealing with. But it is the thing of and you're quick to take the therapist's side because because Abby felt like she was being ganged up on. And he's yeah, so you want to go out for something to eat later? And it's just for her, it's all this nice positive reinforcement she was getting from Nate that hey, we're supposed to be working on us, and it just feels like you're dogpiling on me with all my issues about my drinking and when did it first start and blah blah blah. It just it's already something she's already dealing with. She's actively dealing with it. She recognizes her issues. She's currently working on them, and she's been working on them, and she can continue to work on them. And it just felt like he was shoveling the past in her face, because that ends up being this thing, especially because it's and it's something that Abby really latched onto, was the notion of, yeah, people only want to see you the way they saw you before. How they want to basically put you in a box of who you were before. They won't allow you to grow to become a different person, a happier person. So that's why a lot of this actually resonated with Abby. That's why Lucy was yo, you are somewhat it isn't an intelligence thing, because a lot of people, it comes down to that conversation of, how do you get duped into a cult? It's yeah, but cults go after intelligent people too, because if they're able to get someone who's very intelligent, it legitimizes their thing as well. But it's also when you are vulnerable, whether you're intelligent or not, people are vulnerable, and that's when a cult will take advantage of you. They make you feel especially at such a low point, once again, she's already dealing with everything on top of it, and she's trying to make things work with Frank, and he's in therapy, dogpiling on her. So she's almost finding this value, someone else seeing her in a different light, because at least with Nate, it's right, you don't have this preconceived notion of who I am because we don't have history. Frank and I have our years of history and my drinking and stuff like that. And it's almost rather than being oh, look at how much Abby's grown, he just felt the need to kind of dogpile on my drinking. It felt he refused to kind of see me for the progress I've made, despite him kind of complimenting on multiple occasions the progress I've made, you know? So that's what kind of ended up being this complicated. That's what made it easier for Nate to kind of made Abby more susceptible to it. I thought it was weird the moment he's like kind of like grabbing on you and stuff. Then, especially with the archery thing, it's like, yeah, that's weird. It's like, get a little too handsy. I was like, I don't know if this is legit or not, because it feels cultish, especially when it's like, because every cult leader seems like their thing is like, oh, I'm gonna like try and have sex. Some, sadly not, in some cases, it's not even try it. Like, they end up having sex with their, the people part of their group, you know, and it's just like, right, you're taking advantage of people. I mean, and you thought like, okay, maybe this is going to be so, you weren't sure, just weren't sure, but once again, him grabbing on Abby during the archery thing made you go, that seems weird, because they were making this whole point about, oh, how he's celibate, and I think it was actually after that, it's like, yo, the way he was grabbing her, it's like, no, he's celibate, like, you know, I mean, because he wouldn't really have to really persuade people looking the way he does, but it's not even about that, it is about power and control, like, you know, and that's what this was kind of about for him. We find out Nate's actually even more scummier than we found out, because there was a previous member, I think her name was Robin, I believe, I could be mistaken. Basically, she ended up having sex with him because he kind of convinces you, like, oh, that's kind of part of this. It's like, right, you believe the BS about him being celibate. And so he basically, when she wanted to leave, he basically ended up blackmailing her and released their sex tape to her family and friends and basically destroyed her life. And she tried to like fight him in court for like 2 years because basically he like sued her for like defamation and stuff. And it's just like the lawyer fees kind of stacked up. Basically, he ruined her life. It's that thing of, yo, if you're a part of this thing and oh, we're loving, we're so welcoming, but the moment you turn against the group is when I seek and destroy. And Sabine, it hits home because she did the same thing. She slept with Nate, you know, because she was swept up in all this because she felt like a better person. But obviously during all of this, she ended up finding out, like, right, her daughter, one of her children, I don't know if they have multiple children or not, or whether they just have one. I think they just had one daughter, right? Well, she ended up reading Sabine's journal, and she's waking up in the middle of the night to exercise, and she's putting herself on a very strict diet because it's all about kind of bettering yourself, kind of reaching your peak power and stuff like that. And obviously Sabine never meant for her daughter to like read that and kind of, it's like, right, you're young, you shouldn't be like doing that. But it's because for her, Sabine kind of felt like she was, because once again, like Nate was kind of like puffing her up to be like, yes, like your best version of yourself. And it felt good. It felt nice, you know, because it was something that everyone in the group was kind of feeling that that's what this place kind of meant for them. It made them feel stronger, made them feel better about themselves. But it wasn't until, like, because, once again, even Abby was kind of getting swept up in it until Lucy was like, yeah, he's going to try and, like, get one-on-one time with you and kind of give you this promotion. Because she was like, yeah, this kind of feeling a little pyramid schemish. And then he was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to take you to our executive level. So it's like the moment Lucy says that is when he immediately kind of, like, pushes, you know, it's like, oh, like, you're primed and ready. Oh, you're special. Also, you probably don't want to tell the others. I don't want them to get jealous that a new person is kind of, you know, superseding them in all of this and getting to the executive level. It's like, yeah, I see what time it is. You feel so bad. Once again, like, I don't see Sabine as like a bad person. She was a person that was taken advantage of. It's a situation where it's like, yeah, some of those situations, someone who is a victim in a cult situation can kind of further that along by being a perpetrator in it as well. But Sabine wasn't. She was just kind of another victim. And so they brought in a journalist to kind of like break this story about Nate and everything. So, because he has dirt on everyone and he could use it to kind of destroy them. Because it's like, right, especially with everything going on between Sabine and her and Ephraim, it could be a situation of if this gets sent to him, it could be used to sway like more custody situation, and she could end up losing her children. So, like I said, I think they have more than one child, but I could be mistaken. I think Abby said like, oh, you could lose your children, so I think they do have more than one. And Sabine tried to talk to the rest of the group, and even one of the women, what was it, Lily, was like, oh, no, that's, yeah, I mean, you're kind of besmirching his group, that's not what's happening, but it's like, no, I know it's happening, we all know it's happening, and it's like, none of them really spoke up, but Lucy was like, yeah, but they're all thinking about what you said. What you said struck a chord with all of them, and it's just a matter of time before this house of cards comes crumbling down. Because at the same time, Abby confronted Nate, and he showed his true colors of basically like, oh, I would basically destroy like your entire life. And Abby's like, oh, you want to fight? She's like, yo, I'm ready for a fight. Let's go. You know, it's like, right, because the fact is, she is, now that she sees him for what he is, and Abby is who she is. She is a fighter through and through. It's like, oh, you want to challenge me? I got you. You know, and especially when it's like you're dealing with someone who's taking advantage of so many women and doing what he's doing, like he is a disgusting human being, and it parallels with the other side of this episode because they're dealing with that doctor, which I say, oh, it's such a, because that actor, I associate him with Orphan is, I was about to say Orphan is the New Black. I don't know why I was about to say that. I was combining Orange is the New Black with Orphan Black. But Donnie from Orphan Black, which he was a douchebag in the beginning, but Donnie warmed his way to my heart. Once again, him and Allison are not relationship goals, but kind of relationship goals, but really not relationship goals. It's a complex thing. So it's like, yeah, I have such a positive, so it's like seeing him play such a despicable character. I mean, that's acting for you. You play good characters, you play bad characters, you play complex characters. So, but it's just like, just seeing him as such a despicable human, because they've been setting up this whole settlement situation. It's supposed to be like 15 mil, but when the time comes that it doesn't go through because the insurance won't cover it. And so the guy who was kind of given the go ahead of like, oh yeah, the insurance would cover it, kind of ended up getting fired. And the doctor is saying like, oh yeah, I have no like assets. He was going to pay like them, 20 grand, and it's like 52 plaintiffs in this civil suit, and they were only going to get like $250 each. And it's just like they knew exactly what they were doing, because he's like, oh, you destroyed my reputation. It's because of you. I gave these women what they wanted and you turned them against me. It's like, no, you're the reason why your entire career went down the toilet. You lost everything. You're having to file bankrupt. You are a garbage human being. So now it is a situation that sadly Harry is jumping down their throat. To be fair, Harry's going through his own kind of emotional issues right now after the breakup with Crystal. I love that he was talking to Jerry about it, and Jerry's like, I'm sorry about your breakup. He's like, no, you're not. She's like, okay, yes, I'm not, but still. It's like, yeah, he was kind of happy because like, oh, this deal, like at least there's some good that's happening. Like it sucks like him and Crystal, but he could at least focus on work. Hey, Abby brought in this case that's bringing us in a lot of money, but the problem is the moment that it fell through, he starts chewing out each and every one of them, Abby and Daniel, for not doing their due diligence of like, right, you should have gotten that doctor to sign like an affidavit or whatever, or the insurance person to sign like an affidavit or whatever. But it's like, there was kind of no need at the time. It was kind of like a sure thing, but it's like, he's lashing out at him. It's like, right, you better turn this whole thing around, because this could like severely affect their business when it turns out, hey, you could have had this $15 million settlement, but it got reduced to 20 grand. Like if that gets found out, we're screwed. So it's not like Harry comes at this from the more altruistic point of view of like, right, we got to get justice for these victims. It's more so of, hey, this is a bit, he comes at it from like the less emotional side and the more logical side of, this is a business and this could be a big win for us. Yes, also the victims, but it's like, that was more so like, that's more Abby and Daniel's side of things. Daniel kind of falls in the middle ground between Abby and their dad when it comes to all of this. So they end up looking into it and finding out that the doctor had like some of his houses, his yacht, all of that are under shell companies. So it's nothing that he technically owns. But luckily, Abby gave Daniel a suggestion saying, hey, look into, like, yes, I'm the one that dug up the dirt and brought it to the surface, but someone else could have easily brought this up beforehand, and that could have forced him to hide his assets, which is what happened. Someone in like 2019 ended up confronting him. He was able to persuade them to kind of back away about all of it, but then immediately hid all his assets in these shell corporations. And they bring this to court, and it was supposed to be Daniel and Abby, but she's working on a cult thing, and so it ends up being Daniel and his dad kind of steals the show. It was supposed to be Daniel's opportunity to shine, which for him, it's like, right, dad was amazing, and he kind of undermines his own self, which Abby's like, the one thing she learned from Nate, despite how garbage he is the fact is, once again, people are going to put you in a box of who you are. Like, so it's like, oh, I should leave and kind of start my own thing. It's like, no, just like, stop caring about what dad don't like judge your value by how dad sees you. Dad's gonna like be so caught up himself, like he's so egotistical, like he ended up, being the one kind of toting, and like, oh, he's the one that kind of did the slam dunk, but it's like, no, you're the one that gave him the layup. You were the foundational piece to like, you're the one that ended up finding out about, all the legwork. You did it, and he's like, well, you kind of, because Daniel's kind of, he values their dad's opinion so much that it's like, he kind of told around like, oh yeah, like I value myself this way, I'm important, but it's such a fallacy that it's just that he presents himself one way, he's overcompensating for his own insecurities. Like, it's just like every one of them, all three of the siblings kind of all want their dad's approval in some shape or form. Abby's the one that comes like, yeah, I've kind of went so much of my life without it. I'm kind of fine with that, but I think it does feel good to get it from time to time. But Daniel's always tried to prove himself to his dad, especially, it's like, right, I made partner because Abby like nudged you in the right direction with trying to, I kind of owe it to one of my sisters kind of helping me get my job and position right now. So that is the thing of like him kind of undervaluing himself, so that's once again something he's got to work on himself. But yeah, he gets part of that 40 under 40 list, and he was just like, yeah, suck it, dad. It's just like, once again, it's like, despite what they just had conversation wise, you're still being like, yeah, got one up on you, dad. So we'll see where things kind of go from there. I can see that being an underlining issue that definitely persists. Kind of a little thing in this episode, and I think it's kind of such a sad thing, is that the Cecil and Nina thing, because it was super obvious, like, it's kind of obvious that Nina likes Cecil too, but like, I think she's been waiting for him to take the lead, which I love that it's like, oh yeah, Daniel had this whole like, no, like dating at the workplace, but I love Harry being like, why would I sign off on something like that? I guess it's like Daniel put it in front of him and he signed off on it, but it's like, no, why would I agree to something like that? He's like, I met 2 of my 3 wives in the workplace. Like, who are you supposed to date, I mean, I can see that being a complicated thing, but it's also like you're 2 consenting adults. I guess it's, especially if you're at the same like level range where it's like, it doesn't end up being this power dynamic. I think the power dynamic ends up being a complicated thing in a workspace that, that's neither here nor there necessarily. So, but it's not like Cecil's necessarily in a position where he's like, oh, could like have more power over Nina, but either way, Cecil wouldn't be that person anyway. So he wanted to take that leap. And it's just like, good God, man, like, go for it. Like, Harry gave him the blessing and everything, but Nina's going to take a year off with her dad and travel the world. And so she's putting in her notice. And Nina was, oh, were you about to say something? He was like, no, you could tell that look on Nina's face because she could see, like, the sadness in his eyes. I think she wanted him to kind of say something, but he didn't. Because it's like, no, you want to spend time with your dad, you want to go around the world. I don't want to, like, put a hamper on that by, like, trying to, like, hold you down by being like, oh, yeah, like, I like you. I want to kind of go on a date and stuff. But, and it's kind of sad. You actually go, like, oh, you legitimately feel bad for Cecil. And I think looking on that look on Nina's face, like, I think maybe she was kind of hoping that's what he was going to do, but I guess maybe she was almost like, oh, maybe I'm getting my hopes up. Maybe, or maybe, I don't know if it's going to be that. It feels like it was kind of like they both were feeling like they both were vibing. Like, it feels like it's not just Cecil. It feels like Nina likes him. So I don't know. Like I said, maybe she was just kind of like, maybe she's oblivious to it. Maybe she hasn't really caught on that he likes her. Or maybe she, like I said, just that look on her face made it seem like, because she was like happy and everything. But then the moment Cecil's like expression changed, it was almost like, oh, like maybe she kind of thought, was he about to ask me out? And maybe she's like, oh, maybe I was reading too much into it. Like, I think it is like she kind of wants him to make the first move. So, like I said, I could be reading too much into that. Like, it could just easily be a thing of she is kind of oblivious to how he feels about it, which is kind of sad. I do hope that does end up becoming a thing. I think they would make such a cute couple. The other complicated couple stuff is you have Lucy, and I think this is going to obviously be like a major part of her story going forward, is the whole Maggie thing, where like they were going to have like a book club and her friends bailed, and ultimately she finds out those friends that bailed on her were like, oh yeah, we're kind of torn between you and Maggie, but it's like, no, you're my friends first. I'm the one that started the book club. The only reason why I'm the connective tissue. It's like friends that are being torn, like have to choose between people when it comes to a divorce. It's like, oh, do I stay with this person or this person? Who do I choose in this side? And they kind of chose Maggie because they were like, right, she's pregnant, she's alone, she has no one, like, she needs us more than you do, which is super messed up because it's like, because the thing is, Lucy messed up, and it's that hard situation where you're just like, right, are you going to side with the cheater in the situation, rather than the person that got cheated on? Like, am I really going to do that? That's the complicated thing, but it's also like, we like Lucy, we know she made a mistake, and that's the thing of like, if it's a character we don't really know and we don't care, like, because it's, once again, it's that juxtaposition of like, I'm kind of like, fuck Frank. But like, I'm like, no, Lucy. Like, it's because Maggie tore into Lucy last episode. But like, Frank also did the same thing to, Abby. So like, that's the messed up thing of like, oh yeah, I'm a little more forgiving of Lucy's transgressions rather than Frank's. That's what makes it so complicated. Because it's like, yeah, they're both guilty of the same thing. So I should keep the same energy, but I don't because I'm super biased. Because I think I think it's because in my mind, what makes Frank worse is because he's a hypocrite. Like, because he was making Abby think that they were going to work out, and so he strung her along, when in actuality he was emotionally cheating on her. In fact, he did cheat on her before. Because the way they talked about it, I was like, I thought it was never confirmed that they slept together before, but it's like, no, they slept together before, like, that time ago, and now on top of, yeah, because I forgot, yeah, right, that was one of their issues, like, that kind of sent Abby spiraling even more, is because he did cheat, if I remember correctly. It was a solidified thing of like, oh, he did cheat, but this time he didn't go through with it, only because Abby showed up before they could do the dirty deed. So like I said, it's that I think that's why he rubs me worse than Lucy, because Lucy is apologetic and Frank is too, but it's also, it doesn't help that this episode, it felt like he was dogpiling on Abby, even to the point the therapist was like, okay, why are you bringing up Abby's drinking? He was like, yeah, but is that the core of her issues? He's like, yeah, but she's like, even she was like, yeah, it feels like you're doing this entire thing to vent about her drinking, because he's making it seem like all of their issues stem with her, but it's like, yeah, but there's some underlining stuff that we haven't dealt with. Like, what are the main reasons why you're here? You're not here because of Abby's drinking. The cause of what you're here for is because you're cheating. It's like, right, why did you cheat before and then now continue to emotionally cheat, especially when you were like, Abby was putting in the work for 9 months. She was sober. She was going to AA meetings, and she was getting like counts. Like, she was doing all the work. And so why did he continue to emotionally cheat? And he blurts out, because it's hard with her, with so-and-so, with what's her name, Felicity. With her, it's easy. It's always been hard with her. And for Abby, it was almost like what does that mean? I guess it's just like, it's always, maybe in the beginning it was easy, but then like relationship got hard, and relationships do get hard. But I think for him, it's just, he found an easier route where it's like, right, with someone else, with Felicity or whatever, it was easier. It was simpler. And ultimately that leads Abby to be like, right, no, I understand. I was difficult with my drinking and everything. Like, I was difficult, but I don't want to be someone's hardship. Like, the fact is, you said what you said. You're like, oh, you didn't mean to be so harsh, but you were speaking your truth. But I don't want to have to be something that's hard from someone. Like, it shouldn't be something like you should have to try. Like, it should be a thing of, oh, I cheated because it's simpler than being with you. Like, being with you kind of is harder. It's like, I don't want to be something that's hard for someone. So it's like, right, I'm done. Like, they're ending this. Like, no more trying to work. I was surprised by that, but I think it's the right move. But I don't know if they let their children know, like their daughter. I don't know if she knew that they were going to couples counseling, if they were trying to work on it. I mean, once again, she's not the biggest fan of her dad right now. So I don't know if that's, I mean, she's willing to kind of, after last episode, she was able to kind of like say like, no, I'm willing to give him a shot and everything, and kind of like balance this out a little bit more. But them getting a divorce, especially for their children, it's like them having issues is one thing, them being straight up divorced is a whole other thing. So that's going to be interesting to see what happens, especially like, right, we've really focused on how it's affected their daughter the most, because she's old enough, I think, to really process it. Their son isn't, and so how he feels about it is going to be interesting to see, and kind of caught up in the middle of all of this. So, and it kind of parallels nicely with the whole situation of Efren and Sabine. Like, right, she is going to go see a psychologist, someone that can really help deprogram her after everything, and she tells Efren like, okay, you were right, and I'm so sorry, I didn't realize what was going on, and because she'd even told him the truth about the tape or whatever, but he was like, if he sends it to you, Efren's like, I will destroy it immediately and make sure that like none of our children end up seeing it. And he's willing, like for him, it's like, okay, Sabine, you're back to being you. And it's like, right, his lawyer was like, okay, but maybe we're gonna like lean things towards him kind of having more custody because she's shown like a lack of like, good decision making. But Efren was like, no, I trust her when she says she's gonna do I believe him when she says she's going to do things right, because for him it feels like he's got Sabine that he knows back. So I thought things kind of ended it very nicely and amicably there. So it's kind of this interesting juxtaposition with like Frank, because Frank didn't really have much to say after Abby like made her point. So, and you kind of combine that with Lucy, because Lucy's kind of in that self-hatred period right now. So the aftermath of like she's kind of being ostracized in her life of like, yes, she made a mistake and she is suffering the consequences for it in like their friend group, because it's like, yeah, Maggie is pregnant and alone, so she does need us more. Because for them it's kind of like like Maggie has become our friend, like, yeah, you might have been the reason why we became friends in this book club and everything, but it's still like she's still a part of our lives, and so she needs us. She needs a bigger support group, especially without you in the picture. So it's sucky, but I also get their side of things. But if anything, the person that Lucy was really mad at, especially with the archery, because she was hitting dead center, it's like, oh, it wasn't like her friend that she was envisioning, it was herself. It was a lot of like self-hatred she's kind of got going on. So where that kind of ends up taking us is going to definitely be interesting as well. I'm curious to see where all of this ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.